All right, come on in, everybody. Welcome back to the Tennessee Holler. I am Justin. TNHoller.com is where you can find us at the TN Holler on Twitter and Facebook. We also have Hollers hollering all across the state. Thanks to your support, we really do appreciate it. A few bucks monthly goes a long way. Shout out to Abby Rubenfeld. If you need a lawyer, Abby is who you should reach out to. She is good people and supports us. And if you need a house, Elisa Parker will help you out. And if you need some jewelry, AJ Martin in Nashville. All right. It's been a while since I've been on here, mainly because when session is in session, it's hard for me to do this. I'm running a million miles an hour to keep up with the nonsense at the State House. And today we have somebody with us who wants to go become a part of that nonsense at the State House. Noah Nordstrom. How are you today, Noah?
I'm doing good, Justin. How are you doing?
I'm good. So Noah, tell us real quick, where are you running for State House?
So I'm running in District 83, which is behind me here, but essentially is parts of East Memphis, starting at St. Francis Hospital by the interstate, and it follows Poplar all the way into Germantown, and it catches a little bit of Cordova too.
All right. And you are running against Mark White, who folks should know is one of the sponsors of the private school voucher scam, as we like to call it around here.
Mhm.
Noah, what made you want to get into this, and what do you do?
Well, what made me want to get into this is exactly that. So, like I said, I'm a teacher here. I teach at Overton High School, and it's not just where I teach, it's across this state and across this district. Our schools have been underfunded by the state. And I found myself in the fall semester not having textbooks, having kids passing out in class because of broken AC, mold, roaches. I could go on and on about the amount of dysfunction and the lack of resources that we've been given as educators to do our jobs. But it's such a stressful situation. And then when you find out that your state representative is actually pushing to defund public schools in the midst of an already chaotic environment because of lack of funds, I was enraged, really. And so I started asking around, who's going to step up, who's going to run, because we need better representation. And for the second term in a row, he was going to go unchallenged. And so I said, well, if no one's going to do it, I'm going to step up because my students deserve better and the status quo is unacceptable.
So just to back up what Noah's saying here, there's an NEA study that just came out that shows that Tennessee is number 44 in teacher pay and number 45 in per pupil spending. So when Governor Lee and the Republicans say, oh, we're already fully funding our schools, we've put a lot of money into our schools, this claim that Tennessee is underfunding our public schools is not true. They are lying and gaslighting people, right, Noah? And that's something that you see firsthand every day.
Yeah, absolutely. They want to say, oh, well, we just gave Shelby County more money, or we're doing great. Tennessee is on its way to being at the top, is what the commissioner of education said when she came to Memphis. And it's just a lie. Tennessee is not on its way to being at the top. We're on our way to being at the bottom in the country, and not just in investment in our schools, but also in teacher pay, as you said. So, we're consistently ranking at the bottom of the list, and we know what it takes to actually, have good functional schools. It takes good teacher pay, it takes resourcing, it takes actually having curriculum support for teachers, right? And not just expecting them to essentially design their own courses as the year goes. There's so much I could get into with the details, but the lack of resourcing, the lack of preparation is astounding. And for them to go around lying and saying, oh, we're fully funding our schools, well, it's just not going to fly because we're seeing that that's not true.
Right. And it's important to keep in mind the voucher scheme was beaten back, honestly, in an incredible fight. I really thought it was going to pass, and it didn't. And it was because the people stood up. By the end of it, we were told, one of our sources and Republican side of things said that only 22 Republicans were going to support it in the House by the end of it. That's because the people pushed back. Resolutions were passed all across the state, even in conservative areas, against the voucher scam. But Governor Lee has already said that he will be bringing the voucher scam back. So here, your district has a chance to send somebody to the House that will stand against it, as opposed to Rep. Mark White, who will carry it and sponsor it. One other thing I wanted to ask you about, another thing that we saw at the end of session, was that Republicans pushed arming teachers, that people wanted to see gun safety laws, but what they ended up doing was passing this arming teachers bill, which we've now seen many districts, Knoxville, Clarksville, the Tri-Cities, Nashville, Memphis, have come out against. What's your take on these arming teacher nonsense?
It's absurd. I could tell you as a teacher, that's one of the worst ideas I've ever heard. Um, as a teacher, I've been physically attacked in class before. I've been slapped. I've been, had, big students try to charge at me. And I couldn't imagine having a gun on my belt in a situation like that, because that's one of those things where a kid would try to grab for a gun. And I don't just make up those scenarios. I mean, there was 2 attempts to get guns into our school this year, and the security team is what stopped it. The security at the door, and so to be putting guns in our schools when we are already dealing with kids trying to bring guns into schools, where you have, like, I had a coworker whose car was stolen. His keys were taken from classroom and his car was stolen. Of course, these guns would be stolen if they would be given to teachers, and it's just not a smart idea. It's also creating an environment of fear, right, where that any educator may or may not have a firearm on them. It's not the kind of healthy learning environment that we want to be providing for our kids. Unfortunately, these kids are already living in a community where they're experiencing gun violence firsthand. They have family members, some of them have family members who've been killed, by gun violence, and friends. And, we've had 3 students from my school this year be shot and killed. And so this is such a present reality everywhere. And to be trying to bring that into our classrooms, to be trying to make us less safe in our classrooms, is insulting and absurd. And it seems almost like it was a reaction to the vouchers failing, them trying to pass something right there at the last minute, right before the session ended. And it's shocking. And honestly, I was shocked that my opponent voted for it. Back in the day, my opponent actually used to be a little bit more moderate on certain issues, including guns. He, voted against repealing, permanent carry, but, he's kind of did a full 180, and he's kind of lining up with his party. And so for people to be putting party allegiance and to be, putting pleasing their donors above the lives of my students and above really my life, my coworkers' lives, is really sad to me. And it's just shows how much we need change.
So what you're talking about is absolutely true. People are experiencing gun violence, not just in Memphis, but across the state on a regular basis. We're one of the more violent states there is. This 18-year-old pizza delivery driver in Ashland City was shot at 7 times. And then CJ Davis, Police Chief Davis in Memphis, recently said that they're trying to get AR-15s for their police now because they're outmanned and outgunned in the streets. I would ask you, obviously crime is an issue in Memphis. It's not a new issue. They're trying to lay it at the feet of DA Steve Mulroy. Is this suddenly happened when a progressive DA took over, which is not true at all. But when the people that claim to care about crime talk about the issue, they always seem to want to jail their way out of it. They don't ever want to seem to address the root causes of it. What's your take on crime in Memphis and how we can actually get to the bottom of what's going on there?
Well, I think we're going to have to interrupt this system of violence with care. And that's something that we've not seen. So you're absolutely right. People think we can incarcerate our way out of this crisis, and we can't. One of the issues that we're seeing, for example, just a few months ago, someone in our local jail turned up dead and covered in bed bugs. So we're seeing that there's really unsafe, unsanitary even conditions in our jails here. And to think that, sending teenagers to that facility is going to fix our problem, it's not. And, there's also people get bailed out of jail. So people can, typically get out pretty quickly if they're able to make that bond. So what I think we actually need to do, especially, and I'm going to focus on the youth end here, because 20% of violent crime happening right now is committed by high school aged students. And so I think what specifically in that case needs to happen is that we need to have facilities, like actually schools, boarding schools for us to be able to send these kids and actually get the care they need, right? And instead of just sending them to some sort of incarceration facility where they, don't have any resources, where they might be unsafe. And, unfortunately, people are turning up dead in our local jails. I think we need to be focused on rehabilitating those kids because they're not lost causes. Unfortunately, I think a lot of politicians and a lot of people in general have bought into the idea that we can't do anything about this, that, you know, some of these kids and some of these people committing crimes are just lost causes. And I don't think that's true. It's going to take some serious, deep work to get through this and break these cycles of violence. But it's going to start with politicians and elected officials who actually care and are looking to move away from just the tough on crime, incarcerate your way out of the problem, and move towards a system where we're actually identifying what's missing, the needs, you know, of these people committing crimes, and helping to rehabilitate those people and making sure that, you know, they're not, you know, a threat to other people in the streets, but they're also getting the care they need to become, you know, a better individual, move beyond that behavior.
Right. And if incarceration was the answer, we would be the safest country in the world. I mean, we're the most incarcerated country on the planet, and we're not the safest. So it's hard to take these people seriously when they say they care about violent crime, when they're flooding the streets with guns, underfunding public education, refusing to expand Medicaid, and on and on and on. So, you know, I think you're right. We do need a different way of looking at this. And, you know, Memphis, the percentage of the budget that goes to police in Memphis is like second only to Vegas, and it's obviously not the answer. So we need to start thinking upstream as opposed to reacting to what's going on. And it starts with getting people in office who think that way. So, you know, it's good to hear you talk like that. Couple of other, what are some of the other issues that are motivating you to run? I mean, you know, just off the top of the head, you know, obviously we have women's rights issues. There's the anti-LGBTQ issues. You know, we're one of the highest number of anti-LGBTQ laws in the country are right here in Tennessee. Is that a part of why you're running also?
Absolutely. And it's all connected, really, what you're talking about here. What we're seeing is a large scale assault on people's rights, right? So we have a trigger abortion ban, which, you know, essentially prohibits all abortions, even life saving ones. And people are having to flee the state to get the care they need to, in some cases, survive, right? Like you said, you know, we have some of the most anti-LGBT laws in the country. They tried the drag ban last year, and they're constantly coming after the transgender community. And it's a distraction, right? They're underfunding our schools. They're making our state less safe. They're really messing up a lot of the major issues in the state. So what they try to do to distract us is try to divide us up into little segments and try to make us fight each other, try to make us hate each other, and make that the focus of what's happening in politics rather than what's really happening. Right. And then it's not just women's rights, not just LGBTQ rights, it's immigrants' rights. And that's something really important to me. As a teacher, almost half my students come from immigrant backgrounds and come from immigrant families. And when my opponent and his buddies passed this law about a month ago to force police to work with ICE to ramp up deportations in our state, you know, I had students to me who are not politically engaged at all coming up almost in tears, you know, and colleagues of mine, you know, who work with their families almost in tears talking about, you know, what are we going to do? Now they don't even feel safe to come to school because, you know, they may get pulled over on the way to school and get deported and separated from their family. So these laws are just incredibly heartless, and it's designed to divide. It's designed to distract. And so one of my major themes of my campaign is breaking the cycle of divide and conquer politics, because, you know, I'm not going to let them go after any of our community's rights. So, yeah, that's a big theme of mine. And then I would also tie them right there with the limitation of rights also extends to our cities and our municipalities, especially Memphis and Nashville, right? They're constantly overturning our laws. They don't allow us to make our decisions for ourselves anymore. And, you know, it's because they want to be in control of what we do, and they don't really believe in democracy. They don't believe in people having autonomy over their selves and their communities. And I think that needs to change.
That's all spot on. Again, we're talking to Noah Nordstrom. You can go to check out his website at nordstromfortn.com. He's running in Memphis against Representative Mark White, who was the voucher bill sponsor. He's someone that you've seen a lot on the holler if you follow us at all. He actually, I will say one thing, not many of them stop and talk to us. Every once in a while, he will stop and talk to us. I don't usually like what he has to say, but he actually will stop and talk to us. Along the lines of limiting rights, you know, the other reason that it's hard to take these guys seriously is, they want to jail all these people and incarcerate all these people. Meanwhile, they're all taking money from Core Civic. So, it's hard to take them seriously when everything they're doing is just steering money into the hands of the people who fund their campaigns. It's
Mhm.
completely hypocritical and transparent. On that note, we just saw President Biden is moving towards changing the status of marijuana from whatever classification it has that makes it a harsher penalty and a tougher drug sentencing. But I don't think it's actually going to change anything here in Tennessee because Republicans here have no interest, it seems, in legalizing medical marijuana or marijuana in general. What's your stance on marijuana, which I think is something Democrats should be centering a lot more than they already do, even because, I know Republicans and Democrats who are one issue voters on that in itself.
Yeah, I think the last statistic I saw was something like 70+% of
At
Tennesseans want.
least, at
Right.
least.
Exactly. And so that's a no-brainer to me. Like, yes, I believe we should be legalizing marijuana, and we should be use the sales from that, the tax money, to invest in our communities and really help repair the harms of the war on drugs. Because what we've seen over, the last 40 years now is the war on drugs has targeted communities, specifically working class, black and brown communities for the most part have been targeted by the war on drugs. And we've seen high incarceration rates, which has been detrimental to communities. And we've also wasted a lot of money trying to police marijuana, right? Which, is scientifically proven not to be physically addictive, right? And there's a lot of actual medical benefits for people who need it. So yes, and I would also add one part to that as well. I think the way we do it matters, and I think we should, because some states have allowed it to where just they allow a few permits to a few big companies to essentially make this big marijuana industry that only profits a few people. I think the way we structure it should be set up to where small farmers can actually benefit from this, and we could actually help bring back our rural agricultural economy by introducing a new cash crop to our rural economies.
It's an absolute no-brainer, and actually, there are Republicans in the state house who are for this. Even Jeremy Faison, believe it or not, is for this, but just
Hmm.
not enough of them, and not the ones that are in power. And to me, this is something that should be centered in our state for exactly the reasons that you're saying. It's uh, an issue of race. It's an issue of criminal justice. It's an issue of agriculture, which is obviously huge here in Tennessee. There's really no drawbacks to it. We need people who are more forward thinking on it. And it's also a health issue. I ran for Congress in 2018, and I had right wing veterans supporting me because I supported medical marijuana and Mark Green did not. So, if you are somebody who believes in the benefits of marijuana economically, health wise, and in a criminal justice way, you should absolutely be trying to send more people up there who are on that page. And they seem to be Democrats here in this state. Noah, I appreciate you coming on here. Appreciate you telling us about your campaign. Obviously, Nordstrom for TN is where people can learn more about it. Tell me a little bit more about your campaign and how people can help.
Awesome. Well, there's a lot of ways people can help. Even if you're not in Memphis or Shelby County, you can make a donation to the campaign. That's huge as far as enabling us to be able to hire the staff and buy the materials we need to get out there and get out the vote. We're also doing a lot of volunteer work. So if you're here locally and you're able to do door knocking with us, we've got 2 people out knocking doors right now. And we're doing it whenever people are available, but we have regular also weekend shifts, Saturday mornings and on Sundays. We're going out talking to folks. And we're also doing virtual phone banking, right? So you can call people on your phone. You can do that from anywhere. We're launching our text banking campaign here in the next couple of weeks, which is going to be also really exciting. Reach out to people via text. There's so many ways you can get out the vote, which is huge because that's what makes the difference. We can get out here and complain and talk about politics and our opinions, right? But until we get out there and we talk to our neighbors and we build a movement, we're not going to see the change we need. And so I'm inviting you, if you want to go to nordstromfortn.com, click the Get Involved tab. You can sign up for whatever ways you can get involved. I would highly appreciate that. Whether or not you're in the district, there's always ways to help. So yeah, and if you haven't followed me yet on social media, all social media is Nordstrom for TN. And even just sharing my pictures and videos, helps get the word out. We've reached hundreds of thousands of people that way already. And, it makes a difference. I'm knocking on doors and people are saying, oh, I saw your Instagram post. Oh, I saw you in the news. Right. And so that really reaches voters as well. So,
well, I think that's one thing that I wanted to say that you've done a really good job of. All candidates should be getting out there in front of microphones at school board meetings, at, wherever forums there are. And first of all, confronting the people that are in power, but also letting people know that you're there and you're running. And you've been doing a good job of that. We've tried to lift up some of the speeches that you've given and questions you've asked at these forums. So keep doing that. I think it's really important. And like you said, NordstromForTN.com is where you can find him. He's running against voucher bill sponsor Mark White, who is somebody that frankly needs to be replaced. And good luck to you, and keep us posted on your campaign, Noah.
All right, will do. Thank you much. Thanks for the invite.
Appreciate it. Take care. So that is Noah Nordstrom in Memphis. He is someone that you've probably seen on the Holler. We've definitely posted a few of his things over the last few months. And he's running against Mark White, who is somebody that, he talks to me. I find he's fairly easy to stump. And, these are just people that should not be in charge of the state. It's like Noah said, he used to be kind of a moderate, and now he just goes along with everything that they do. And, that's not leadership. And when you've got things like arming teachers and this private school voucher scam and all the various ways that they're attacking our public schools by basically trying to make people afraid to send their kids to public schools, it's just not who we need in office. So I'm glad to see Noah's running. His perspective as a public school teacher, I think, is really an important one to have up there. We don't have enough of that up there. And, I think he said some good things here that we'll definitely be pulling clips of. So check him out at Nordstrom for TN on social media. NordstromForTN.com is his website. And we are going to have more candidates like Noah who are running for office across the state on the Holler. And I extend the invitation to Mark White and any Republican running for office. You're welcome to come on here also. We are not only inviting Democrats, but they're just the only ones that accept our invitation, unfortunately. So Mark White, if you're out there, love to have you on. And that goes for anybody who's running for office in Tennessee. All right. Thanks for following the Holler. We'll see you next time.